welcome to members of the Cal South Coaches Association. My name is Robin Russell. I'm speaking to you from London in England, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Siggi, who is the former technical director of the Icelandic Football Association. He's currently assistant coach of a club, successful club, Lillestrøm in Oslo, and we're going to go over now to Oslo, and Siggi is there. Good evening, Siggi.
Good evening. How are you?
And Siggi's going to tell us something about the Iceland Miracle, whereby a country with 300,000 people has been able to qualify for the Euro. So over to you, Siggi.
Thanks, Robin. I've prepared a little presentation, and I'll probably just go through that, share that with you. So I'll click here, screen share.
While you're doing that, Siggi,
yeah.
Just tell us a little about you have played college soccer in America. I know you played professionally in England, and you played professionally in Iceland as well. But you also have some experience of soccer in America, yeah? Yeah,
I played well, I went to college in America for 4 years. Did my bachelor's and master's degree in America at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Played soccer there. And then I went to play professionally in England and then in Belgium. After that, I moved back home to Iceland to work as the technical director for the Icelandic Soccer Association for 12 years.
Right.
And then I took over the women's national team for 7 years as well.
Okay.
So that's my background in football.
Okay, so off you go. And if the viewers are now joining us, if you have any questions, please, our Twitter hashtag is Iceland Miracle. So over to you, Siggi.
Thanks, Robin. I've prepared a few slides. Don't know if I'll go through all of them, but there might come up questions, and then maybe I'll click on one of the slides. But what's been making a lot of noise or raised interest in Europe, and maybe even further out than that in other countries, is what's happening with Icelandic soccer. I'll go through that a little bit. Iceland just became the smallest country ever to qualify for the Euros, and the men's national team is doing better than ever. The women's national team is still doing very well. Both of them are top 25 in the world in the FIFA rankings. Icelandic professional players are playing all over Europe. So the questions we've been getting is, how is that possible with a population of only 320,000 people? So that's kind of the big question that I'll try to answer, or give you some insight. I don't know if anyone has the real answer, but these are the things that I think are the most important in explaining the success of Icelandic football. Just some numbers in the beginning. We have 320,000 people living in the country. So that puts us in 184th place, I think, in the world as far as population. We have just over 20,000 players. 14,000 of them are males and 6,500 females. There are 90 clubs, 620 coaches, and now I'm counting every single player who plays football in the whole country from age 6 till end up to first team football. So we don't have that many players. To put it in comparison with the US, would be if Iceland was a US city, would be 58th biggest in USA. So you see a little bit the size of the country, the population. The men's national team is 23rd in the world now. It's the highest ranking we've ever had. We just qualified for the Euros, even though we were in a tough group with Czech Republic, Netherlands, Turkey, and Latvia and Kazakhstan. So you can see we also reached the playoff for the last World Cup, so almost made it to the World Cup, but we lost out against Croatia in a playoff match. So you see some of the results against some of the good teams in the group. We ended up second place in the group. On the picture, you can see the president of the Icelandic FA on the left, and Lars Lagerbäck, the head coach, who's done a fantastic job for the Iceland team. He's from Sweden, and has taken Sweden to many final competitions, as well as the guy sitting next to them, or in front of them, Heimir Hallgrímsson, is an Icelandic coach. And now they're actually two head coaches, Lars and Heimir. They coach the team together with great success. And of course, a lot of credit belongs to them and the goalkeeper coach, the coaching team. The women's national team is ranked 19th in the world. It qualified for the last 2 Euros and made the quarterfinals in Euro 2013. And we played against USA in the Algarve Cup in 2015 in February or March, and there was a 0-0 draw. So it's a very good team as well, and they've been ranked as high as 15 in the world. I just want to go to another slide here, which says, what is the Icelandic secret behind developing players? And you see just a lot of pictures on your screen. If you go to the top left, you see a player, the picture on the top left, you see Diego Maradona playing against an Icelandic player whose name is Ásgeir Sigurvinsson. Many people say that he's the best Icelandic player of all time, playing for Stuttgart, and he was voted the best player in the German Bundesliga, the top league in Germany, in 1984. Next to him, you see Hermann Hreiðarsson, who played for many different clubs in England, and during his career, he became the Scandinavian player, or the Nordic countries player, who's played most matches in the English Premier League. The female next to him is Margrét Lára Viðarsdóttir, who is by many considered the best Icelandic player ever, and she has played around 100 national team matches for Iceland and scored 75 goals, all-time leading goal scorer for Iceland. Next to her is her sister. She plays professional football in Sweden with Kristianstad in the top league, in one of the strongest leagues in Europe. Then you have bottom left, Gunnar Heiðar Þorvaldsson. He was a leading goal scorer in Sweden a few years ago. You have next to him Birkir Kristinsson, a national team goalkeeper, and I'm not going to count all of them. But what's interesting when you look at this picture, all of these players are developed at the same club, and the club is called IBV. And IBV is in a town called Vestmannaeyjar in Iceland, and the population of the town is only 4,200 people. And what's interesting when you think of player development is that all these players come from the same club, and the club is too far away from other clubs to recruit from other towns. They're isolated. It's a small island south of Iceland, so they could only work with the players that live in their town. When you have a population of 4,200 people, it means you only have maybe 30 players that are, if you just take like the 12-year-old boys, it might be 20 or 30 12-year-old boys living on the island. And you have to work with them and try to create a player. And they've developed all these players through the years, both male and female. So you start thinking you can develop really good players with just a very small population. But there are some other things, of course, that are very interesting when you think of player development and think of Iceland and how we've managed to develop our players. I recall one time when I was at a UEFA conference and I met Robin Russell. We were in an elevator. So he told me about, I don't know if you remember this, Robin, but you told me there's a certain thing called the elevator speech. And you need to be able to tell in 30 seconds an answer to a question, just while you write down with the elevator. And he asked me this question, Robin. I don't know if you remember this. So how can Iceland create so many good players? And when you asked me, I wasn't really prepared. But it's funny that we're meeting now 12, 15 years later, or what it is, and discussing the exact same topic. I'll try to explain now the Icelandic way of developing players. The first thing that's maybe special for us is the impact. Or no, sorry, the how much we value coach education, and we think it's important to get the coach education out to all the coaches. I'll give you some numbers later on to explain the importance of that and how well we've done in doing that, especially over the last 12, 13 years. What also happened in 2002, we started improving the winter facilities in the country. I'll explain a little bit. When I was playing football myself, I moved to Iceland back in 2002. I played with the Icelandic champions, KR. I was Icelandic champion 2002 and 2003. And the facilities we had over the winter time was just a dirt pitch, gravel pitch, terrible facilities. But right now in Iceland, we have full-size indoor football halls where you can play football all year. You have so many pitches with football turf or astroturf that facilities are no longer a limiting factor. You can play football for 12 months out of the year, whereas in the past, because of weather, you could only play football 4.5 months out of the year. The rest of the year, you were doing long distance running, weightlifting, a little bit indoor football when you could find space to do that. So that's been a very big change for Icelandic football, and it has helped us develop a lot over the last 12 years, the facilities. Now, you don't need the best facilities in the world, but they need to be good enough, and the players need to have access to them. That's important. And now I have a 10-year-old girl, and if we still live in Iceland, we lived in Iceland last year, she was 9, she could train in a full-size indoor football hall 3 times a week. And that's different also for Iceland, that we have access now to great facilities. And that helps develop the kids as well, because they have access. It's important to, when we thought about the system we wanted to have, to try to develop all the players, because we have so few players. So we didn't just focus on the best players like many countries do. They just pick the best players from a large number and just coach them and focus on them. We had to focus on all the players. So every single club in Iceland tries to develop the best players, but also the beginners, also those that are in between in ability. But we think this is done best with ability-based grouping. So the best players train together, the second best train together, and the beginners train together. And they also, when we play matches with the kids, they play against teams that have similar ability. So you don't get big wins and big losses. You get games that are very even. This is totally different in Norway, where I live now. In Norway, they have parent coaches, volunteer coaches. They don't have ability-based grouping so much. So you might see a youth match going, scoring one of the matches the other day I heard about was 33-2. And we think that doesn't develop any players, not the best ones and not the poor ones. So we believe a lot in ability-based grouping. We can talk about that if you have questions. The other thing we do, we start from day one to teach football skills with qualified paid coaches. Because we don't have volunteer coaches or parent coaches, we can say that in Iceland, you're more likely as a kid to have a coach that knows what he's doing, that has background in the sport, and can teach you the right skills at the right age. This is crucial when you think about the windows, the training windows. The most important training window for technical skills is when the kids are young. It's maybe the first, well, you can say 8 to 12 years old, or even 6 to 12. You want to be safe, because kids grow up at a different rate, or with different, different speed. So we really focus on the technical development age by teaching football skills. Then I've added in some other things that we think are important to have a work hard mentality. I think that's a little bit engraved into the Icelandic people. We've had our ancestors had a hard life living in Iceland with bad weather and not great facilities and so on. But we've always had to work hard for what we've got, and I think that's part of our mentality, and I think that really helps We encourage extra training. I'll show you one or two things we did to encourage that as the Football Association. And we've improved the technical skills a lot. We did that also through extra training or training outside of regular practice. Try to reach the kids to do that. And the last big question we asked is there an Icelandic mentality? And that's what I've thought about a lot, especially over the last few months, when I think about why has Iceland been successful, and some research that's recently been done in psychology. And if you try to put that into football, I think there's definitely something there going on with the mentality. But that's hard to point out research that has been done that says Icelanders are any different. But there are some interesting facts that I can point out later on in the presentation.
Siggi, can I just interrupt you there? We've had a question in, and I say other questioners, if you want to text us, we're on the hashtag Iceland Miracle. In Iceland, is there a lot of competition for the kids' leisure time? Are there lots of activities that they could do rather than play soccer?
Yes, many of the kids in Iceland, they train two sports. And I have some statistics on that as well. Even our most successful players, the players that are now on the A national team, a lot of them play two different sports up to a certain age, and then they stopped. Everyone stopped playing all sports except football at age 16, but most of them stopped between age 12 and 16. But it's very typical for Icelandic kids to train, maybe for boys to train maybe team handball or basketball as well as football, and for girls it might be gymnastics and football. The girls sometimes start a little bit later than the boys to play football, and they start a lot of them start in gymnastics and then come into football. We, as the Icelandic Football Association, when I was there, and it's still the recommendation, we encourage kids to play more than one sport. We think that's important to develop their motor development.
All right. So these youngsters weren't just specialising in soccer from a very early age. No. But
we teach them technical skills right from the start. And instead of just focusing on playing and having fun, of course we want it to be fun. We want it to be. We want to encourage lifelong participation in the sport, and they get real interest in what they're doing. We're not just focusing on success or winning games, definitely not. We're trying to develop players. We're trying to coach all the players, no matter which ability they have. So that's been our focus.
Okay, you're going to go back into the presentation and maybe tell us about coach education. If you could click on, and whilst it's doing that, maybe you could tell us how much do the coaches get paid in Iceland?
Well, that varies a lot, depending on which age group you coach and how many kids you're coaching. But all the parents, they have to pay a fee if they want the kid to train football. Sorry, I say football and soccer. You know it's the same thing. So the parents have to pay a fee. But what's good in Iceland is that the local town authorities, they subsidize the cost, or they pay a little bit towards the coach's salary if he has coach education. So they support the system. They support the football clubs with facilities, and they support them with if they have educated coaches, they might get a financial grant, and also they support children's participation in sports and also in arts. So if your kid wants to go and learn how to play the piano or start singing lessons or play football, the local town authorities will pay a little bit of money towards that. So it doesn't cost you as much as a parent. And that's been important also to develop our players and to have paid coaches. And if you have paid coaches, you can make demands on them to have coach education, so they know that what they're doing, they're getting paid for it, it's a profession. But of course, it varies a lot how much they get paid. Many of the school teachers in Iceland or physical education teachers, they have a job coaching football over the summer, because we have a summer football season, and then they teach at school over the winter, which is really good for us, because then they have teaching skills. They know teaching methods, they have teaching experience, and I view football coaches as teachers, football teachers. So I think that's a really good background to have, especially if you played the game as well. And most of them played the game as well to a decent level.
Okay, thanks a lot.
The percentages you can see in Europe, the UEFA has 3 levels of coach education: the UEFA B coaching license, then the A license, and then the Pro license. In Iceland, we of course try to have the best quality that we can in the coach education courses, but we also thought it was important to get the coach education out to as many coaches as possible, because we figured that we have no idea who's coaching the next Messi or Ronaldo, or the Icelandic version of Messi and Ronaldo. So it's important to help as many coaches as possible to have the tools necessary to teach technical skills, to teach the right things at the right age, to help players develop. So we needed to get education out to as many as possible. And this is a very, very recent study. It was done this year in Iceland. So these are very fresh numbers. And because we're not a big country, we could examine every single coach. So the response rate was 100%. We take every single coach in Iceland, so they're very accurate numbers. So a lot of our coaches have done the coach education. So that's the culture in football in Iceland, to have coach education if you're a coach. So that helps. The other thing, the facilities I've talked about, but there you can see the difference I was talking about in January 2002 when I moved back home to Iceland, started working for the Icelandic FA. We only had 1 football hall in the whole country. We only had 5 AstroTurf pitches and 7 mini pitches. We call mini pitches, what should I say, Robin? It's a smaller AstroTurf pitch that are built on school grounds to promote interest in football. It's a project from UEFA, and it's been going on in all the European countries, I think. And we've since 2002 built 130 pitches on school grounds to promote interest in football. We also have the full-size football halls and some smaller ones that are good for training, but not big enough for matches. And these facilities have really helped us develop coach education as well, because in the past you couldn't do much of stop, stand still in your coach education course, because you were freezing outside in minus 10 or 15 degrees and snowing. So that makes a big difference, and that's really helped us develop coach education. So facilities now, you see the pictures here of some of the facilities that we have. Fantastic. And of course, it makes a big difference if you can play football just 4.5 months or 12 months. You'll develop a lot more, especially if you do that for 10, 12, 15 years. So Iceland was maybe underdeveloped in the past, but since we've had the facilities and the coach education revolution, these things have really helped us to improve. As far as the training that we do outside, or encourage the kids to train on their own, we think that's really important for development of the players. So we encourage the coaches to encourage the kids through the coach education courses, but we also took initiative as the Football Association put in place a project called the Technical Skills School. Sorry, it's in Icelandic here, the picture, but it's the cover of a DVD that we did. We made 20,000 copies. We gave it to every single kid in Iceland up to 16 years of age that was training football. We got the women's national team, the men's national team, and the under-21 men's national team, as well as the national team coaches, to hand out these DVDs to these 16,000 players that got the DVD. The Icelandic FA has still some more, because of course there will be new players coming into football that we want to give the DVD to. And the DVD is just technical skills, simple technical skills that you can do on your own, or with a friend. So you don't need a coach. Of course, it can also be useful for coaches, but it's simple exercises that you can do on your own or with a friend. And then you can see the categories there. Don't have to read them up, but you get the idea of what we're trying to do with the project.
No need to just keep that there. Just keep that there. But could I ask, if people wanted a copy of that video, sorry, that copy of that DVD, how could they get it? Contact you or contact the Icelandic FA?
Yeah, they could do both. If they contact me, I can forward them an email.
So we're going to get your email at the end, so that's fine.
Yeah. So we made some copies with English subtitles as well. So we have some that, and we get requests all the time. So the Icelandic FA has sent copies to coaches all around the world that have asked for it.
And it's free.
Yeah, we haven't charged anything, but I don't know if they still do free shipping and handling and all that from the Icelandic FA. They've been quite good with that, but okay. It's worth asking for it. So we think this has helped to promote the thought of kids training on their own, doing extra work on their own. A little bit of homework in football. I put in how much, it's maybe typical number of training sessions per week for kids in Iceland. And there are some mandatory things that you have to do, like you have to learn how to swim in school 1 time a week from age 6 to 17 in Iceland. You also have mandatory physical education classes. Some of the clubs will offer special training or extra training for the most promising players at the club, or if you've reached the national player pool or the player pool for the national team, the training squad for the national teams, you will maybe get some extra training at the club. And some schools have started cooperations with the club where you can focus more on your sport and train during the school time.
And that would be for all players. What you've got there on the screen is for all players, yeah?
Yeah, that's typical number of training sessions for the Icelandic kids. Of course, some train more, some train less, but I would say that's very typical, the number of training sessions each club offers to a kid.
Okay.
We had I did a little study on our best players, the A national team players, when they were in the under-21 national team. And so I had a list of questions for them, and this is kind of what we found out, the major results. We wanted to find out, like, how old were they when they started training football? Did they train with an age group above or not? Do they train more than one sport? And so on. So I put some things up there that I thought you might find interesting, that coaches might find interesting, that might aid them in their player development. It might be different in other football cultures. I don't know. I can't compare it to many studies. I haven't seen that many studies looking at elite players and what's their background when they started. And of course, there are some weaknesses also when you do a study like that. Maybe the players don't remember exactly how old they were when they started training football, but I think it's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah.
Our star players, I don't know if you've heard of them if you live in the United States, but the guy on the right is quite famous, Siggi Eyjolfsson. He's played for Chelsea, Barcelona. He won the Champions League with Barcelona. He's playing in China now, and many say he's our best player ever. The guy in the middle is our new star player, Siggi Eyjolfsson. He plays in the English Premier League with Swansea. He's been fantastic in the Euro qualification games. Scored a lot of goals. He's a free kick specialist. Fantastic midfield player. The striker on the left, Kolbeinn Sigþórsson, will definitely in a couple of years be the all-time leading goal scorer for Iceland. His scoring rate with the A national team is fantastic, and he played in the Netherlands before he moved to France to play. And there, of course, we have some other players. What's maybe different now is we have more players that are really good than ever before. So we have a bigger player pool to select from. So I took an example. Here's an Icelandic club, a little bit more people that live in Akranes, 6,700 people. But you see the rate that they're developing players for professional clubs abroad. They've been doing it for decades. So there's a culture in Iceland of we develop the players, we give them a good foundation. When they become really promising, play for the youth national teams or start playing in our league, the bigger clubs abroad will pick them up, and our best players will go abroad to play. So right now we have around 90 players playing abroad professionally, and they play in I think 14 different countries at the moment. About 20 of them are born 1996 or that they're younger than that. So we have a good we have a good future. We think our under 21 national team is top of the group, also in qualifying, after beating both France and Ukraine. So we think the future is quite bright.
Just say that again. You're under. Just say that again, Siggi.
Our under 21 national team.
Yeah.
Is top of their group now.
And they've beaten,
qualifying.
And they've beaten France.
They beat France and Ukraine.
Okay, amazing. And Akranes, I've been to Akranes. It's a very small place, and I think Akranes some years ago beat AC Milan in the UEFA Cup. Yeah.
You're almost right, Robin. I would like to say yes, but when they beat Feyenoord in 1992, they beat Feyenoord with almost all of the squad was homegrown players.
So Akranes 6,700. They produced some great players. 1999 was probably a bit wayward, but apart from 1999,
it was a bad year for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
But here's another club that's done exceptionally well in developing youth players. This slide is from their head youth coach, Daði Rafnsson, and it shows just what's possible at one club. It's a club, the biggest youth club in Iceland. They developed 19 players from 2007 to 2015. 3 of them went to play in England, 1 in Spain. Alfred Finnbogason, he became the leading goal scorer in Netherlands, and he's now playing for Olympiacos in Greece after playing last year in the Spanish top league. 2 players went to play in Netherlands, 1 in Denmark, 2 in Belgium, 1 in Greece, 2 in Sweden, 5 in Norway. We have 2 Icelandic players at our club, Lillestrøm, from Breiðablik. There's 1 went to Denmark and 1 to USA. So it's possible at a club, even though you're in a club that's not huge, but even Breiðablik is one of the bigger clubs in Iceland, but still small compared to many bigger clubs abroad. And it's possible to develop really, really good players with the resources that you have. And then when we talk about the mindset or the mentality of Icelandic players, I think I ran through too many quotes from foreign coaches that coach the Icelandic players when they talk about the Icelandic mentality or the mentality of their players. That's something they talk about it as something unique, something special. And when I look at the list of Icelandic players who have been selected captains at their clubs, and the clubs in question, some really big clubs abroad, you start to think, okay, why would a big club abroad with 20, 30 players select a player from Iceland as their captain? So is that because he has leadership values, he has or leadership qualities? Is it some type of mentality that they like to put in place at the club? There's too many. Like there's 2 now right now in the Norwegian top league. Guðmundur Kristjánsson Start and Indriði Sigurðsson Viking, the bottom 2, and they're both captains of their clubs. So I can't really say that I have any evidence that the mentality is any different in Icelandic players, but it seems more than a coincidence when you look at the number of players that have become captains. Then I have, this is probably too small for you to see. There's a 70 pro players in 14 countries. Probably too small to see. Can you see that, Robin? Or
not very well. Not very
eyesight. And then 17 players players abroad that are born 1996 or later.
Okay.
I have. I want to put this forward. I don't know if you, if this is familiar or not, but I would recommend, if you're a youth coach, to have a look at things like how do players learn. And I think some of the studies that Benjamin Bloom did, he's an educational psychologist, famous educational psychologist, who studied what's important when kids learn. And he had some interesting discoveries about the importance of teaching one-on-one, or tutoring, as he said. I think there's a really effective way of learning, if it's possible, to add that to the group training that you have. And I've sometimes mentioned, if you take any skill, like let's say you want to learn how to play the piano. You're a kid and you want to learn how to play the piano. Then there are different ways of doing that. I think the most effective way to do that is to sit with someone who really knows how to play the piano and how to teach how to play the piano, and you do that one-on-one, because then you get immediate feedback and you can correct your wrong notes or your mistakes really quick, and you have an expert in Iceland, an expert who's guiding you, and just gives you his or her full focus. In Iceland, we try to put that into place through our coach education. We have a mentor system, which means Icelandic coaches, they have to have another coach as part of their coach education to come and observe them in training and help them become better one-on-one. So you have an expert or someone who's a little bit more experienced or better, or and he comes into training and observes you and helps you become better. And I think that's a really effective way of learning. The other thing that I think is really interesting is the studies of Angela Lee Duckworth. And if you go on TED.com, there's a very good presentation. It's not long. It's maybe 7-8 minutes long presentation. Angela Duckworth has studied what makes people successful.
Was that TED?
TED.com.
Yeah.
And she's been studying students, she's been studying soldiers, she's been studying people in all kinds of walk of life, in various situations, and she's examined what makes them successful and why. And she's come up with an answer. She's come up with something called grit, and she's made questionnaires about grit. And her results are basically that people that have grit are more likely to become successful in various different areas of life. And I think if you put that into football, that can really help. But it's quite new research, so they're still figuring out ways to develop grit. Grit is like passion and perseverance. To attain your long-term goals. So if you have that goal of becoming a professional player abroad or reaching the national team, nothing's going to get in your way, nothing's going to stop you. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You won't let anything get in your way. You're so determined to become successful. That's great. And she's developed a questionnaire for that. And she is also mentioning in her presentation the work of Dr. Carol Dweck on mindset. She wrote a book called Mindset, which is a great book if you're a youth coach, and it talks a lot about the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. And growth mindset can help you develop grit. So they're related to each other. So I advise youth coaches to read Mindset, to see the presentation of Angela Duckworth on TED, and think how it relates to football. and try to put that into your coaching. Develop mindset and mentality, not just football skills. So I'll take an example how I do this. I go every now and again, I go to the football field with my 10-year-old daughter. We do, when we go, we work on some things that kids might find boring. We call it deliberate practice. So we focus on things that are not always fun to do. And right now we're focusing on juggling the ball, keeping the ball up in the air for as long as you can. My daughter doesn't always like it, but she has goals. She wants to go far in football, and then she wants to, and then I say, if you want to go far, you have to train a lot. You have to train a bit extra. You have to train more than the other players. So she does that. While we're on the football field the other day, we went in the evening, maybe 9 o'clock. We had this full AstroTurf pitch on our own, and she said, "Dad, can you teach me a little trick? Can I do some kind of a trick that helps me keep the ball up in the air really long, really many times?" So I said, "There's no trick. There's nothing that you can really do, but I'll tell you what the trick is. Maybe have a look around you." And she had a look around, and I said, "How many players do you see here on the pitch training?" And she said, "Nobody." And I said, "Yeah, okay, but that's the trick. You're willing to go out and train and become better when other players are not willing to do that. And it takes a certain mindset or mentality to do that." So I think, and of course she can be upset sometimes when she drops the ball, but then you can ask, okay, why did we drop the ball? Shall we just go home now because you're not getting the scores that you like of keeping the ball up in the air? Are we going to give up because we're not successful, or are we going to work even harder at it? So you can develop mindset while still working on technical skills. I don't know if you totally understand what I'm trying to say, but I hope it comes across.
All right. Yeah.
I think I've gone through most of the slides. Here's maybe the last one. If you want to see the fees, sorry, they're in euros, but I'm sure you can figure out the conversion to US dollars.
About the same as US dollars these days, I think.
Yeah, okay. So you have on the left, this is the club, as I said, the Breiðablik, the biggest club in Iceland, the biggest youth clubs with most participants. And this is also a slide from Daði Rafnsson, the head youth coach, where he's saying there how much it costs to train at the club and how many training sessions a week over the winter time and summertime they have for the kids, and also how much money they get from the local council or the local town authorities that help pay towards the salary of the coach. Most of the money goes towards paying the salary of the coach.
Of the coach, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in the end, and of course, if you have questions, I'll answer the questions. I've put my email up there, siggirakis73@gmail.com, and you can write me if you have questions. If you want a copy of the presentation, I can send you that. I've got no problem with that. I think this will also go online, or you can access it again.
Yeah.
So maybe one thing I wanted to mention as well, I'm in the process, because there might be interest in some of the coaches to learn more about Icelandic football. I am writing a book on the subject, so if you want to be on the waiting list for the book, I can send you an email when it's finished, and then you can get a copy of it. So then you can write me if you're interested in the book when it comes out. Just write me an email.
Okay, Siggi. We've had a couple of questions in. There's a number of people listening to us, actually in California, and I can see our friend Ricky in Atlanta. There's Rafael in Poland, and Brittany Gonzalez in Los Angeles, and quite a few others. But Ricky, Siggi, if I could go back to you and just ask a couple of final questions. How long is the season in? How many games do the kids play in Iceland typically?
The season it's the same for the kids as for the adults, and maybe a little bit shorter, maybe 1 month shorter, but it goes from the beginning of May or mid-May, let's say mid-May, until probably middle of September or beginning of September, depending on which age group you're in. The first team players, they play until beginning of October, but then they take a month off normally, and then they start the preseason, the longest preseason in the world. And then we then, because now we have better winter facilities, we play some regional tournaments on AstroTurf and in the football halls, and that starts in January, and that goes from January till April.
For the kids though, the season's quite short. It's maybe 5 months, yeah.
Yeah, but now they also train now 11 months out of the whole year.
Okay.
And they have the regional tournaments or friendly games and training throughout most of the year. But the competitive season, the Icelandic tournament, is played just during the summer while we have grass pitches.
But certainly they train, they are practicing 4 or 5 times more than they are playing, yeah?
Yeah, they're training a lot more than they're playing, for sure. But we still have quite a lot of games, and it's quite popular in Iceland to have tournaments where clubs invite kids to come and play, other clubs. So I think we compete a lot in Iceland, and I think we're very competitive early on. Yeah, I would say that's one of the things that we're good at as well. We compete a lot, but of course we also train a lot.
You've coached the Icelandic women's team to European Championships and done that successfully. There presumably is full equality and equity in Icelandic football between male and female players.
I'd like to say yes. I think we're closer to it than almost all other nations. But one of the things, like the women's national team plays in the same stadium as the men's national team, and there's the same prize money in the men's top league as the women's top league. But there are some things that need to improve in Iceland as well. There's no under-21 women's national team. It hasn't been since 2007, I think, or 2006. Because of lack of money, and there are some other things that need to change and become better, like media coverage of the women's game. But and we need more players and more coaches that are female. We need more referees that are female, more club leaders. So we're dealing with the same problems as many other countries are doing. But it's definitely better than in most countries, I think, the equality.
Okay, and the final question, Siggi, that Lottie's talked about the relative age effect, and obviously, given the small number of players you have, presumably you have to take early birthdays, late birthdays, middle birthdays. Did you work hard at actually making sure that your teams were not just developed from early birthdays?
That's a great question. The problem we have in Iceland at the clubs is because we're so few. We have to put them in age groups where they're 2 years. So if you're born maybe 2005, you play with kids and train with kids that are also 2006. So 1 year you'll be older than some of the other players you're training with, and 1 year you'll be younger, a year younger. But if you take in the relative age effect or the birthday bias, then it can be even longer time, because you might be born in January and the other player in December, and a year younger as well. So it's something that's very difficult to change in Iceland. All our national teams have to show a relative age effect. And players born early in the year are more likely to play for all our national teams. That's unfortunate. There's also not enough money to have a special development team, like some countries maybe do. We don't have money to do that. So we've tried to, through coach education, make coaches aware that don't always just pick the players that are bigger and stronger, because they might also just be a little bit older. and this difference will in physical ability will even out when they become older. But then you need to also think of the small players that are clever and so on.
I got a question in from Sol, Southern California. How is Iceland doing in developing female coaches?
I think we're doing quite well at the grassroots level with the number of coaches that we have. Around 17% of the coaches in Iceland are female. Well, 17% of the youth coaches are female, but I think it goes up to 33% of all the coaches in Iceland that are assistant coaches that are female. So, but at the highest level, there should be more females coaching the youth national team, so the A national team, and in the women's top league. There's still quite a lot of men coaching there. So hopefully more females will get more coach education and more experience and better jobs.
Another quick question, because we want to wrap up in a few minutes, Siggi, and I'm grateful for your time. But another question was, what's the relationship between grit and injuries? Does grit, from your experience, create a number of injuries or not?
I don't know enough about that to be able to give you a good answer. There is something called that you should be aware of. It's called the Character Lab, and it's originated from Angela Lee Duckworth and her university. I think she's at Penn State. I think she's from there, and they're trying to develop ways to develop grit. But they do this in the classroom. They're thinking about schools. But you can take a lot from what they're saying and maybe put it into football, put it into sports, and try to learn from people in other fields than just football. And there are some similarities, but there's not been enough research, I think, on grit to be able to say that. Okay.
Siggi, we've taken away from your family and your 10-year-old daughter too much tonight. Our hour is nearly up. We've got a lot of questions. And we're very grateful for your time, Siggi. Can I just remind all of those that are watching that this will be on YouTube. In a few minutes' time, you'll be able to see the recordings of it, and I hope you will pass on the link to other people to have a look at it. And of course, Siggi's been good enough to give you his contact details. There they are again. Please remember that his telephone number. He's a very brave man putting his telephone number on there.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize that.
Please remember that where he is at the moment, Oslo, is he's an hour ahead of UK time, and that's at the moment 8 hours ahead of West Coast America time, and shortly to be 9 hours. So don't wake him up in the middle of the night with a telephone call, please. But Siggi, back to you. Many thanks for your time. Please take the opportunity, all of you, if you can do, contact Siggi. He is truly one of the outstanding technical directors in Europe, and he is available, I'm sure, to help when he can do. But for the time being, Siggi, really interesting presentation. The number of quotes I've seen on Twitter this evening that Ricky Clark retweeted saying this is an outstanding webinar. Thanks very much indeed. And Brittany Gonzalez says that she was excited to listen to Siggi. So Siggi, many thanks indeed. And all the very best for the rest of the season with Lillestrøm.
Thanks very much, Robin. I enjoyed it. Thank you.